Hello and welcome to Warren Thornton on Patreon. And boy, what a show we've got for you tonight, because we're going to be talking about all the things that have gone on, that have happened in the last few days, and we have it all. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. If it is your first time having a look at the show, then settle down because we've got some fun and games for you. Now, of course, you will remember, or should remember, hopefully, that we have been banging on. Now, we're going to be talking about the mission that literally failed from the Americans, and we're going to be giving you the full story on that in a little while. We've got two other stories and another one on top of that need to be got out of the way. So we're going to be getting into those, and then we will get into the full story after. And of course, you will remember 100%, hopefully, that of course we broke a story, literally, that the Diego Garcia Air Base is a cover story because the distance to distance the UK from what is actually happening and its plausible deniability. Akrotiri Air Base was being used to target and track Iran's leaders for the USA. It was also used. In the tracking and the targeting for the missiles that hit the school on the first day. Now, we made that claim and everybody said we were talking nonsense. We also told you, if you remember, that many of the places that we used, and by the way, the two aircraft that were up in the air, there they are. There's the two aircraft from Akrotiri Air Base that were up in the air the day of the school getting hit. And as we said, there was a double tap. They were up in the air for 52 minutes. There was a double tap on that school, 37 minutes in between. And we have been telling you that the A-10 Warthogs have been loaded on from British air bases. And there are depleted uranium shells that made their way out to Akrotiri Air Base. These were first given over to Ukraine, if you remember, from Rishi Sunak, who gave them depleted uranium shells. Well, they've been moved on, and of course, Akrotiri Air Force Base and Ramstein Air Force Base, they are now with Warthog A-10s. And of course, many of the planes have been being loaded, A-10s and all the rest, the close support bombers and everything else have been loaded from such places as Fairford and Lakenheath and, of course, Prestwick. And many of these, shall we say, shells and everything else were kept just round the corner, of course, from where these airfields are. And, of course, we've been saying all this. People can go, no. It is absolutely now confirmed that that has been going on. We have somebody at the airfield who has we've been able to get in touch with. And we also have, shall we say, somebody else who's shouting and talking about this. And of course, there is no question whatsoever that this has taken place. And many people are saying, oh, I can't believe that this is true. Well, let's have a little look at a video, shall we? This is from Declassified, and this is going to take you through the whole story.
Did you know that this is an American bomb warehouse in the middle of the English countryside, just 20 miles away from an airbase that Donald Trump is using to attack Iran?
We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're going to bring them back to the Stone Ages.
And is this evidence that Britain is much more deeply involved with this illegal war than Keir Starmer has told the public?
This is not our war, and we're not going to get dragged into it.
I've come to what's supposed to be a Royal Air Force base near Swindon to investigate what's going on behind the wire.
American security police who presumably will shoot you if you try and get into one of the bunkers.
Joining me to investigate is a veteran anti-war activist, Peter Burt. We're about 50 to 100 metres now from the fence, from this massive American bomb stockpile in the English countryside. Peter, you've been monitoring this base behind us for weeks now. What have you seen going on, and why do you think it's so important?
So RAF Welford is linked very closely to the Fairford Air Base, where Donald Trump's bombers are currently flying from to mount raids on Iran. And the interesting thing about this place, Welford, is it's where many of the bombs used in these raids come from. It's said by the United States Air Force to be the second biggest bomb store in the whole of Europe.
You've been taking some videos while you've been here. What have you seen?
What we've seen is trucks going in and out, and we've seen exactly the same trucks at the other end in Fairford. We've also seen that these trucks have orange hazard warning signs on the side to show that they're carrying explosive materials.
And although this is called RAF Welford, it's actually operated by the American military. It would cost them almost $1 billion to replace the infrastructure they have here, according to a Pentagon document that Declassified found. And the site is as large as about 500 football pitches. It's absolutely massive. The American military have released footage from inside Welford showing these bombs being taken out of shipping containers by forklift trucks and put onto lorries, and then we've seen the same bombs being unloaded at Fairford. These are 2,000-pound bombs. How do you feel having an American-operated military base here in the English countryside?
Well, it shines a light on the so-called special relationship, doesn't it? This is a place that probably not many people know about. You know, it's tucked away at the top of a hill. If you don't live in one of the villages nearby, then you'd never know about it at all. Yet, you know, it's a very important part in the United States' military power in Europe. It's one of the kind of key hubs for ordnance that is used by the United States Air Force and, you know, other military units within the United States forces for any of their operations in this part of the world.
So, Peter, we've now walked right up to the fence of this base. Have you ever been in any further beyond this point?
Strangely enough, I have, because back in 2003, during the Iraq War, there were lots of anti-war campaigns at this base and lots of non-violent direct action as well, which involved people climbing over the fence and roaming around inside and then being ejected by the police. So yes, I was able to climb over the fence and get in. At that time, security was much less than it is now.
And what kind of weapons did you see being stored inside the base?
Again, you probably wouldn't see it now, but at that time, there were huge pallets of 2,000-pound bombs just sort of laid out in big long rows behind the revetments that you can see behind us.
To improve security at the base, the US military began storing the bombs in shipping containers inside the grass banks, as these satellite images show. The containers full of bombs are transported each year across the Atlantic on a ship carrying $145 million worth of ammunition to keep Welford ready for war. However, drone footage we took this week of the base showed there were hardly any containers left inside the banks. So have these bombs already been dropped on Iran? Activists monitoring the base say there have been lorry convoys from here to Fairford up to 3 times a day during the last month. This could mean the stockpile is now running low. Over at RAF Fairford, we saw American troops loading more sophisticated cruise missiles onto planes bound for Iran. whereas 2 weeks earlier we'd watched them load the cheaper JDAM bombs from Welford. Experts believe the cruise missiles are being delivered to Fairford not by road, but by C-130 cargo planes, which have been seen landing frequently at the base, flying in from Germany and Italy, where the US military has stockpiles of cruise missiles. These weapons, which can cost more than $1 million each, can be fired from outside Iran's airspace, suggesting the US still doesn't have air superiority over the entire country.
And are you worried that bombs from here could end up being used to kill civilians in Iran?
Very much so. We know very little about what the flights from Fairford are doing. We have no indication at all of what their targets are or what their destinations are. The only information we know is from plane spotters. We haven't heard anything officially from the United States government or the British government. Keir Starmer has said that these flights will be engaged in defensive operations, but what does that really mean? Is an attack on a Iranian missile factory, is that really defensive or is it offensive? Something else to bear in mind as well is if we are helping the Americans defend themselves and defend assets in that part of the world, that frees up more American aircraft for use in their own offensive raids. So there's no getting away from this. This is not a defensive stance that the government is taking.
The party that is defending is Iran. Iran was not starting this war. We were talking, negotiating with the Americans when they coordinatedly, started this aggression against us. So we are in defensive posture, and whoever siding with the aggressor is in the offensive side.
Donald Trump, of course, has made statements about taking out Iran's entire electrical infrastructure, which would be a war crime.
We are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard.
But Keir Starmer has drawn up this framework about defensive strikes. So you're not convinced by that legal framework that he's put in place?
We have nothing to back the legal framework except a one-sentence statement from the government that they assert that it will be lawful and they assert that the strikes will be defensive. But there's nothing to show at all what kind of safeguarding there is to make sure those strikes are defensive. We don't know whether the British forces will have any kind of veto over what the Americans are doing. Highly unlikely that they would. So we don't know whether these aircraft are involved in any kind of civilian attacks at all. As you say, Donald Trump has said that he's going to take out the whole of Iran's energy infrastructure. Let's think back a couple of months to the Ukraine war and the quite rightful outcry that there was when Russia started attacking civilian energy targets. Donald Trump is planning on taking out the whole of Iran's energy infrastructure. Just imagine the outcry there would be if Putin threatened to do that in Ukraine.
And there are now 23 of these heavy bombers at RAF Fairford, which is about half an hour drive from here, taking off almost every day to go and bomb Iran. Their flight paths are quite interesting. Many of them seem to go over the southwest of England, over Devon and Cornwall. Why are they doing that?
We know that Spain has said that American aircraft are not allowed to overfly its territory.
This war in Iran is a big mistake for the world and therefore for the US.
So that could mean that the aircraft are going way out into the Bay of Biscay and then through the Straits of Gibraltar and through the Mediterranean on their flight paths. We also know that some of them have been flying over France. So it's possible that they've chosen a refueling site somewhere, in between that kind of area where they could hook up with tankers to provide them with the fuel they need to continue their journey.
And we've seen those American Air Force refueling planes crash over Iraq. The Pentagon say it was a mid-air collision. Iraqi armed groups say that they shot one down. Is there any cause for people to be concerned about these aircraft doing refueling loops over the southwest of England?
What we did see back in 2003 during the Iraq War was one flight from Fairford at least had to abandon its mission and then fly back into the Bristol Channel and jettison bombs and fuel into the Bristol Channel. So that could conceivably happen again. And there have been cases, over the past couple of weeks where B-52 flights have been aborted and the flights have gone back, in an emergency situation to Fairford.
Last year, some Palestine Action members broke into RF Bryce Norton, not far from here, and sprayed paint on a Royal Air Force plane. After they did that, the group Palestine Action was banned as a terrorist organisation, and the people that were arrested allegedly for doing that are still in jail awaiting trial. Is that kind of response the norm, or what happened back in 2003 when activists broke into bases like this and RAF Fairford?
Back in 2003, we did have more liberties than we do now. But even in those days, during the Iraq War, there was very much a strong policing clampdown. We saw this whole area sort of swarming with police patrols, police on mounted horses, and anybody who came into the area who looked like a peace protester. And even a lot of farm workers were repeatedly stopped and searched by the police. And if they found on you a banner or anything that they thought was related to protest, they would warn you off the land and you weren't allowed to come back for 3 months. And in the aftermath of that, there was a big inquiry by the US military aimed at increasing security at this base. They set up something called a Tiger Team, and they introduced new military bylaws and other legislation to stop people climbing in.
Do you think that there could be a public backlash to the Americans having bases like this in England?
Well, I hope so, because what we're seeing is, without question, a war crime by the American government. And far from condemning it and preventing it from happening, the UK government is actively aiding and abetting through these bases and through its involvement and allowing the US to use them for attacks on Iran. So I very much hope that does happen.
If you like watching this video, don't forget to share and subscribe to our channel. If you want to help us do investigative journalism like this, please consider making a donation through the link below. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, no, Shannon said we knew this was coming. Yes, we knew it was coming. We were banging on about it for ages and ages and ages. Now, what we can reveal before I let Nilus in is these shells, these depleted uranium shells. And of course, we've been loading up these bombers for everybody, for America to go and strike and everything else. We've been involved in this right from the start. Now, the depleted uranium shells that were in Ramstein Air Force Base and Akrotiri Air Force Base can not only be fired from Warthog A-10s, they can also be fired from tanks. And just go and check it, you will see. Those shells are now in Israel, and Israel are waiting for America's permission to use these shells in Lebanon. And the whole idea is to make this area, as you know, most of the areas where, of course, people are growing, shall we say, crops and everything else in Gaza, they've been using chemicals to poison the land so that they will not grow anything whatsoever. Now, the whole idea is to create this buffer zone, of course, between the Israel state and Lebanon. And the general idea now is to use these depleted uranium shells in southern Lebanon. So we are breaking this story here. This is coming, and these shells have come from Great Britain. Originally, they were put, some of them were put in Ukraine. The Russians found them, and of course, we reported on the massive blow up, and of course, they weren't allowed to go anywhere near. So this is what is happening with the depleted uranium shells. They're not going to be used on Iran. America have vetoed that, but they are going to be using them in southern Lebanon. Nilus.
Yeah, it's amazing that our roads are being used to transport bombs. If you go on a motorway or a main road and you see a big lorry, you're going to wonder if it's going to be for bombs. And also, the RAF have got bases in the Americas as well. They're basically spying facilities, not to spy on foreign countries, but to spy on the civilian populations of those countries. For example, the Americans have bases here where they monitor telephone calls and emails and things like that. And we've got bases in America where we do the same for the Americans.
77 Battalion here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And because in both countries, I think it's illegal for the governments to spy on their own people. But if it's a foreign power doing it,
in the national interest. In the national interest, you can actually go and look that up. If it's in the national interest and a matter of national security, then they can get special permission to do so. So they just go, it's in the national interest. Anybody?
Yeah, one of the most.
Go on.
One of the famous places when it got sort of exposed was when that lady, she ran over this motorcyclist, and she was working from a base.
She was,
and it turned out she was high up in the CIA.
Yeah, and she buggered off back to America, and she's never been charged. She's never been seen back in the UK since.
No, she's got a cushy job in Langley now, I think.
She has, yeah, exactly that. And she wasn't extradited. The Americans wouldn't let her be extradited. Lee Williams.
I was just going to.
Oh, go on, Lee.
Sorry. Yeah. Does China or Iran or North Korea know about this at all? What's going to be happening in Lebanon?
I would imagine not. It's we're the only one, apart from one other source, that is actually breaking this. That they are now being used. They're going to be used in Lebanon. Now they have asked the permission of the Americans to do this. So that blows apart anything that Israel control America. No, America are letting Israel know whether or not they can use it. Now, there is something else, of course, we need to talk about. And this has, of course, come to light in the last few days. Trump has actually come out and said that, of course, they were responsible for giving lots of weapons to lots and lots of very, very shady and very, very naughty people. And of course, everybody have been telling us that it was complete nonsense. And of course, we were talking all rubbish and everything else. Well, Trump has actually come out and admitted again and again, saying that, of course, he has given these weapons. He's done this over the last few days, literally coming out. But let's have a listen to everything that Trump's been saying, first of all, before we get into this.
And that's an edict, that's in writing. If they protest, if they go out in the streets, they will be immediately shot. They don't have guns. You know, we sent some guns, but the group that was supposed to give, which I said would happen to my people, I said it, I called it exactly. We sent guns, a lot of guns. They were supposed to go to the people so they could fight back against these thugs, you know.
Right. So, first of all, and of course, he's come out with a load of rubbish. First, in one statement, he turns around and says 25,000 people were killed, 45,000 people were killed, 3,217 people were killed. And of course, these guns, they say, or they're trying to say now, that they gave them to the Kurds. The only reason they're saying this is because they want the Kurds to suffer, because the Kurds didn't turn on the Iranians. They didn't give the guns to the Kurds. They smuggled them through the Zangezur corridor. And I'm sorry to put you through this again, but we do need to have a look at this video, and then we're going to see a little something afterwards that'll make your blood boil. Of course, when we made that video a few months ago, everybody thought we were quite mad. There's the problem, though. These guns were then, along with the NGOs, the whole idea was the military were meant to be ready to go at the same time that the uprisings happened. Now, there are, just in case you are watching for the very first time, this is the peaceful protesters that Trump was talking about. Let's have a look.
همین که تیانزیاری میکنه همکارا رو پشتون شهید میکنه با آسد تلاش این تشکیش هم که با آسد
Now, that is one of them. And of course, the whole idea was these so-called peaceful protesters, along with Elon Musk's Starlink, were able then to coordinate with each other to do these riots in all sorts of cities. Now, just in case you weren't aware, there was a run on the rial, which is the Iranian currency. They came out in the streets. This was designed so that people would go out and protest in the streets. They did. And then, of course, they activated all these NGOs with all the weapons that were smuggled through the Zangezur corridor, all these NGOs, various Israelis and everything else, to go out and start murdering people. Then the Russians helped Iran out, and they were able to get hold of the situation. Now, they weren't, the idea then was to blame the Iranian Republican Guard and the Iranian police. And of course, it wasn't the Iranian police killing protesters. These poor saps who got killed had nothing to do with the protests at all. Have a little look at this. Now, the general idea was to go out and kill around 30,000 people. It was meant to take place over 3 or 4 weeks, and then the military were meant to step in and free the people of Iran. And here's the kicker here, that once they had started doing this, the whole idea then was to install their own, shall we say, lunatic in there. And of course, there'd have been even more purges, rather like there are in Syria, where the Christians, the Alawatis, were being slaughtered. And of course, this person would have got a whitewash, rather like Al Jilani did, and then a visit to the White House and everything else. And everybody would have said, what a wonderful person the new leader of Iran is, rather like Delcy Rodriguez, who, remember, we told you, literally went to Doha at the Bentley Hotel and had secret meetings with the CIA to overthrow Maduro. Now suddenly America have lifted all the sanctions against Venezuela. So that was the plot. The Russians managed to stop, and we've shown you the videos of the Starlink terminals being intercepted. The Russians cut those off, and suddenly they started arresting the protesters, or these so-called protesters, but they were actually NGOs and rioters. And in fact, every single one that was arrested or shot, a Starlink terminal was found in their home. How very, very strange. And of course, now our story, everything that we've been talking about, now out there in the open.
You guys know that I'm always trying to keep you updated because news at the moment is moving so fast in regards to the war in Iran. And while I sometimes troll Donald Trump, I always want to bear in mind that as much of a lunatic this man is, his decisions are incredibly serious and they affect so many human beings. So one interesting point is, you know how for so many months since December and January during the Iran protests, people were talking about how there was foreign interference, infiltration, there were traitors inside of Iran who were armed with weapons. They were actually killing regular protesters, regular Iranians who had legitimate protests. They were actually killing Iranians. That's the truth. Now, Western mainstream media framed it as though it was the Iranian government that were killing Iranians and this is against human rights. Donald Trump has just admitted that he provided weapons to Iranian protesters via the Kurds. And while it's funny that he said that the Kurds kept the weapons, what this really exposes is the fact that foreign nations arm certain militia groups, they're infiltrators who are going to cause civilian uprising and riots and killings. And that's exactly what happened. So you remember that there was so much propaganda, so much in Western mainstream media, but now they are telling us exactly who they are, what they do. And this confirms that the majority of protesters, I would call them rioters, were actually killed because they were armed by nations like the United States of America. It's there right in front of everybody.
And there we are. So everything that we were saying about this months ago, and you remember, you've seen that video so many times. When we talked about this months and months ago, everybody said, oh, it's complete nonsense and everything else. And of course, once again, I want to thank our people who gave us the heads up on this. And the reason we're doing this, I know it's a couple of I told you so's tonight, but the reason we're doing this is to let you know, if you're watching the show for the first time, and what is about to come up tonight is the reason we are doing this is to show you that our sources are spot on. It may come out a little later, it may come out a lot later, as these two stories now have, okay? But our sources are absolutely fabulous and bang on the money. This story we broke must be 3 months ago, I think roughly about that. It was actually, no, it was actually 6, 7 months ago when the riots happened. I believe that was back in June. So that's what, 7, 8 months. And of course, we also broke the story about the UK being completely 100% loading up all these weapons from the bases in the UK. And that was a few months ago that we broke that story, but now we've got declassified and much bigger outlets now coming out with these things. So I want to say a massive thank you to absolutely all our sources who are out there who keep supplying us with this information. Well, shall we get on to the next source? And you may not hear about this for quite a long while, but we're going to go into it. There are already people speculating, and they were speculating just right. So let's have a little look at some of the things that have been going on. This is the helicopter that was shot at. I'm going to leave you for a minute to have a look at the full video of the Iranian police shooting and damaging and helping to damage a couple of helicopters.
سردار ما به سمت هلیکوپتر داریم تیراندازی میکنیم. هلیکوپتری بود که قبل از اینکه بیاریم مستقل بشن اینجا رو تعمیر کردن که بعد ازش استفاده کنن. یه سری غذای خشک هم موقعیت هست گذاشته بودن اینجا که بعدا بخواد چیزی ازش استفاده بکنن. اینا یه سری غذاهایی هست که قبلا اینجا گذاشته بودن که بعد که اومدن هلیکوپتر بکنن ازش چیکار کنن استفاده کنن دستبنداشون.
There we go. So, of course, and if you watched the program yesterday, we would have shown you, we showed you the video of literally the grandfather who took out his AK-47 and started unloading on all these people. Nilis.
Yeah, we know that 6 aircraft were brought down or destroyed, and 1 was damaged. But do we know if there were any casualties or from these
Yes, we
aircraft?
Do. Yes, we do.
And
be patient.
We know the number. Right. Sorry, right. But,
so here we go. Let's get into this because, of course, the nonsense that is being spoken by this, and they are literally trying to push this left, right, and centre, saying, "Oh, it's a massive rescue operation and everything else." It is simply not true. The fact that they were able to rescue them, was simply a matter of, shall we say, expediency, and the fact they were very, very lucky indeed. Now, of course, Trump is turning around and saying they were lucky. Have a look at this.
Well, you know what? When you do thousands and thousands of flights and you have one plane shot down and not mortally, the two pilots got out, they got a little bit lucky. And you know what? In war, you need a little bit of luck also. They got a little bit lucky. That's all they got.
So a little bit lucky, only 10 times. The thing that we have here, of course, is people trying to get that message out. And the whole idea was to get that message out early. And I'm going to show you something here. You're going to go, "Oh, why are you showing us this?" Well, there's a good reason. I'm sure you'll tumble it because you're intelligent people.
What do you make of all the fake news and it affects
If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read it, you're misinformed.
So what do you do?
That's the great question. What is the long-term effect of too much information? One of the effects is the need to be first, not even to be true anymore. So what a responsibility you all have to tell the truth, not just to be first, but to tell the truth. We live in a society now where it's just first. Who cares? Get it out there. We don't care who it hurts. We don't care who we destroy. We don't care if it's true. Just say it, sell it. Anything you practice, you'll get good at, including BS.
You told me last
Okay.
And that's why there was this massive charge by the Americans to sell this as a hero story. It was, and we now have confirmation from somebody who, I'm going to have to say this very, very carefully. Somebody, the unit that took part in the operation, we have an inside source. So we can tell you without, totally and unequivocally, we are telling you this was an American operation to try and get at the Natanz nuclear power plant. And the whole idea was, of course, to get there, to be able to take people to verify and say that they were going to take this literally enriched uranium. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of pointers here before we move on to this. 70 odd people to go and rescue literally one pilot. No. One of the pilots, or one of the people in that aircraft, and it was just pure happenstance that Iran managed to knock it out of the air. Now, loaded into these Hercules were these mini helicopters that can do a short jaunt. And why were they doing a short jaunt? Well, let's get into this. Let's show you the map. So here's the map. And of course, they came across the border, as we said, and of course, they got this base ready. Now, there was a firefight that happened here as they were coming in. And of course, they had got a base here just around Lordigan. And the whole idea was there's Isfahan up there. And of course, the Natanz site, the Natanz nuclear site, is in between Kashan and Isfahan. And the whole idea was a short hop, totally ruin the place, get in there, get what they think is where the enriched uranium is. Now, it serves two purposes here. I'll just go back to that. So these are the three areas that you want to be looking at. And of course, this is where they crossed the border. And we all know that they went from there. And of course, we were talking about the firefight that happened here. And of course, the firefight that happened here, which is where basically around here, where the base was. Now, very, very simply, here's a couple of things that you will not have known. And of course, we're going to get into this 100%. This has now come to light. There are various pictures that have been taken. We know that the absolute nonsense of them getting stuck in the mud is complete nonsense. We've shown you the terrain around there. And of course, it is complete rubbish that they, of course, got stuck in there. that everybody is turning around and saying, "Oh, no. They got bogged down and the Americans blew it up." No, they didn't. They got literally all the aircraft, almost to a man, were hit on the way in. Okay, and of course, we told you, if you remember rightly, that they were bombing absolutely everybody for the first half an hour because they didn't want one of these people who were in the jet, a colonel, to be caught. And of course, it wasn't until then that, of course, about half an hour later, when he managed to climb a ridge and set off his emergency beacon, that they changed tack. But they were blowing up cars on roads and everything else at the time to try and stop them from coming. Later on, as they were trying to extract, they were blowing up main roads, trying their very best to make anybody stop, of course, from coming along those roads. Now, the picture we've just shown you, of course, people will turn around and go, "Oh, well, it's just..." No, this is called actually attacking the crossroads and vehicles. These potholes here, not going to stop anybody for 5 minutes if the Iranians want to get along the road. So for half an hour, chaos reigned, and this was partially the reason for Trump losing his mind and coming out with what he said, because literally, these people had gone OTT. They'd gone up completely over the top. Now, let's get into the mystery of Amanda Ryder, who had an Israeli border control B2 stay permit for the state of Israel, of course. And Amanda Ryder, of course, is down as a cadet. If you believe that, I've got a brinch to tell you. Now, the whole idea was not only for these people to do the short hop in the choppers, and these choppers can carry at least 6 to 8 men at a time. The idea was, of course, that the flying in the Hercules would be no good. It would be very, very difficult, of course, for this to happen because it is too long a distance. So the idea was to get this disused airfield. They didn't make an airstrip. They used a disused airfield, and then to make the short hop in the choppers. The only problem is, went horribly wrong because, of course, the colonel that was going to oversee this literally got shot down. He was very, very lucky that he was very close to where they were, so they were able to evacuate him. It was in the general vicinity. So when Trump says Iran were lucky, they were lucky. And of course, they have gone into major spin to try and spin this. Now, the whole idea was that they could then have somebody corroborate that could then return to Israel and say, "Look, I've seen the evidence, here's photographs, this, that, and the other." Well, they have it. And the whole idea of having this many people where there were experts there to be able to remove that uranium safely, okay? And the whole idea was to transport that and then make a big statement, "Look, we've completely taken away their chance of any enriched uranium whatsoever." They are then able to assuage the Israelis, and they're able to walk away from the war, saying, "We've won, we've done this, we've humiliated the Iranians, we've taken all their enriched uranium." And of course, it all went horribly, horribly wrong. And of course, Trump has now turned around and said, "Well, it was only one of many ideas that we had, that we might go in there and we might try and do this and everything else." This is complete nonsense. This is just a cover up, and they are using the rescue. They're using the rescue as a reason to turn around and literally cover up what has happened. And of course, it has totally and utterly failed. And of course, many people will turn around and go, no, we don't believe you. Well, time will tell. We've been right on many, many occasions before, and we know we're right because we have an insider, okay? Somebody, third hand, admittedly, but we are also now hearing this from a couple of other sources as well. But they are turning around and saying, and they're giving a detail here, and we're going to break this now. There are 17 injured American soldiers from this operation that they took place. 0 dead. The pilot, they do not know whether they will survive. Okay. What we know of that is that they suffered pretty awful internal injuries. And of course, they're saying, oh, they'll make a full recovery. Well, they might well do in time. But we are telling you now that there were 17 soldiers injured. They bombed, literally, they tried to, first of all, they bombed every car that was leaving the area for half an hour, thinking that the colonel had been captured. Far better that he was killed than, of course, he was tortured or paraded on national TV. And of course, because that crashed Jimmy Carter's government way back when they tried the rescue operation there. So this wasn't a rescue operation. This was an operation to go and get literally the enriched uranium, and to be able to walk away from the war and say, we have done this, aren't we fantastic? And when it all went wrong, because they were able to grab their colonel back, they were able to spin this as a huge rescue story. Now, what you have to remember here, and this is important, this is the single most loss of American aircraft in a war situation since the Vietnam War 50 years ago. Okay, they lost 7 aircraft, and obviously the short haul choppers that of course were inside the Hercules. Now these can be pulled out and they can literally be made ready inside minutes to take off. And the whole idea is you put 8 guys in there, 70 people went out to rescue. That doesn't happen. And when you consider the area they were, they didn't need the Hercules to go there. So there's no reason for the Hercules planes to be there apart from transporting choppers. A couple of Black Hawk helicopters go in, extract the guy from where the beacon is, even 1, maybe 2, flying very low, get in, get out fast. Okay, it was only because where they were going to was a longer haul that they had to use the Hercules and land at the disused airport to be able to use that. And all this nonsense about getting stuck in the mud and everything else is complete rubbish. They were surrounded. The Iranians were bringing fire to bear, and then suddenly, because everything was damaged, they had to fly an emergency plane in from the other direction, load them up, and get them the hell out of there. And that's why they bombed all the main roads at the end there to try and slow down any Iranians coming towards them and give them time to make the getaway. And they did get away, but they have 17 injuries, and this is the full story of what really happened. And if anybody wants to challenge us on this, we are more than happy to. As I say, our sources are brilliant. You've seen a couple of examples tonight, and we are telling you now, we have an inside source that has told us all of this. We have another one too. We've had certain aspects of this been by our Pentagon source that has turned around and said, but we now have 2 military sources, and one of them literally connected to one of the units. I can't say which one, obviously. Connected to one of the units, who has told us the full story of this. The whole idea was this would enable Trump to declare a magnificent victory, walk away with the enriched uranium. And of course, they don't even know that it's there. But very simply, they could have made up any old story. But it was also to take a couple of people along as well that could then return to Israel with the proof to give to the necessary people. Ask yourself this question. If the pilot went down in that area and you can use a chopper to go and get him out, why do you need a Hercules? Why do you need 70 people to go and extract one person? And why do you need people who are down as listed as cadets with Israeli, shall we say, visas to go along on that trip? Just have a little think about that. If you think this is about the massive operation of losing millions of dollars of aircraft to extract one pilot, you're absolutely, as I say, I've got a bridge to send. Okay, so this is what we're claiming. There is nobody. There are certain people that are claiming certain things, but nobody is claiming the full story that we are now telling you. This was an operation. We are absolutely certain now that this was an operation to go and get all of this stuff and literally present it as a fantastic win, and away they go. So there you go. That's the full story. Let's get into this.
and that's an edict, that's in writing. If they protest, if they go out in the streets, they will be immediately shot. They don't have guns. You know, we sent some guns.
So there we go. That was just revamping that story, of course. And of course, many people are talking about that. Now let's get into the pipeline. Because the Turk Stream pipeline, this is the next story that we're going to go on to. The Ukrainians have obviously been arrested with bombs inside Serbia, looking to blow up the Turk Stream pipeline that feeds Hungary. Now, Peskov has once again turned around. Our friend, who is very close to Peskov, has turned around and said that not only the Turk Stream, but the Blue Stream pipeline is under threat as well. And the whole idea is the Turk Stream and the Blue Stream, they want to literally break those up. Now, guess what? What we have is the same old boat that turned up when we had the Nord Stream, or the same old ship, I should say. And of course, many, many people out there will remember the French spy ship, the deployed Doloon, the Doloon deploy, which of course is the French spy intelligence ship, which is also literally made and has a decompression chamber down here, literally has a decompression chamber, and you are able to launch military operations in dinghies with divers to go and blow things up. And of course, as we know, that was used when Nord Stream blew up. Now, when Nord Stream blew up, just in case you people didn't know, when Nord Stream was blown up, literally the American Navy were there about a week beforehand, but they're telling you that the Andromeda yacht now was used to blow this up by the Ukrainians. Complete nonsense, because as we've spoken to Louis Bastos, who is a sailor who knows all about decompression and divers, of course, very simply, there is no way in hell, of course, that the decompression chamber would have been big enough to fit on, or would have been small enough to fit on the Andromeda yacht. The decompression chamber would have been bigger than the yacht itself. And of course, there's no way going down at that depth. And that we know, we geolocated it an hour beforehand. It was literally 1 mile away when the estimated time of the Nord Stream pipeline was blown up. And of course, we have it, shall we say, at literally inside a bay in Sweden before it went out on that mission. So that's just giving you a heads up on that. Here's the real reason. When they talk about regime change and they talk about nuclear and they talk about everything else, the real reason is the same as it always is. Here you go.
I won't go further because there are other things that are worse than those two. And we might have, well, the thing, if I had my choice, what would I like to do? Take the oil. Because it's there for the taking. There's not a thing they can do about it. Unfortunately, the American people would like to see us come home. If it were up to me, I'd take the oil, I'd keep the oil, and would make plenty of money. And I'd also take care of the people of Iran, much better than they've been taken care of.
So there we go. We're going to let Louis Bastos in a second. The only reason I played that with Trump with the oil, it's the same. It's the oil pipelines and the gas pipelines. Blow them up, get the resources, try to cripple the economy, and then grab their resources. Same thing is happening in Iran. And the Turk Stream and the Blue Stream, the French and the British are involved along with the Ukrainians in trying to achieve this, but they are working with America. All this, oh, America this and Britain are not getting on. It's all a smokescreen. They are sharing information. MI6, CIA and Mossad share the information. It's the same as the nonsense around Soros, with Trump wanting to put Soros. Soros is a conduit for helping the CIA and everybody and the banks link everything together. They're all interlinked, okay? Soros goes, puts money into NGOs. They cause riots, overthrow. America moves in. They grab the resources. The banks come in, the oil companies, and all the shady organizations. Louis Bastos.
Going back on our story about the, what do you call it, the stream being blown up, the Ethan Andromeda motor yacht, which is 39 meters long, but it's a luxury yacht, and I would never have a decompressor inside that thing. It's a luxury yacht, 39-meter Andromeda.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, mate. And of course, we know, or we think we know, or we should be able to know, that this yacht, of course, was completely unsuitable for the task. And as Louis is around the world yachtsman, so he would know. And he also knows about decompression chambers. Thank you very much for that, Louis. The complete nonsense, of course, that is coming out from these people is, of course, complete. And as I say, rubbish. And we're not going to get, how can I put it, any common sense out of these people whatsoever. I'll tell you why you're not going to get any common sense. Have a look at this.
And that's an edict, that's in writing. If they protest, if they go out in the streets, they will be immediately shot.
So that is absolute nonsense. They went out and they shot them. And of course, people are turning around and saying, no. It didn't happen that way. Yes, it did. They went out on the streets, as we've shown you. And listen to this.
Mr. President, how would it not be a war crime to strike Iran's bridges and power plants?
Because they killed 45,000 people in the last month, more than that. I think it could be as much as 60. They kill protesters, they're animals. And we have to stop them, and we can't let them have a nuclear weapon. Very simple. They want a nuclear weapon. They've been trying for a long time. I stopped them with the Obama horrible Iran nuclear deal. I stopped them.
So there you go. They're animals. There were never 32,000 killed. That was agreed upon them that amount would be killed, and therefore would justify military action. The actual 3,117 were killed. 690 of them were these so-called protesters, but they literally executed non-protesters, almost 2,000 of them. So lovely to have you back, Chris. I hope you're enjoying the show. And of course, as I say, this is we're going to see more and more of this coming up. And this nonsense that you're hearing is entitled, as are saying it, calling itself the peace president. I sort of got into this, and I've been getting into this with a lot of Americans, and you can always tell there are many US military bots or bot farms on X, because at the moment, of course, I highlighted that this is the greatest US Air Force disaster in a wartime situation since the Vietnam War, way back when they lost 11 planes in one day in 1975. This was the biggest disaster in American military aviation. Of course, they were all starting to shout, yes, but we rescued one person. What they didn't want you doing was they wanted a little magic. They wanted you to look over here and not look over here, where the failed, shall we say, experiment or the failed operation actually took place. So we've given you everything there. By the way, Trump is now trying to get a peace deal. And the nonsense, of course, narrative that he's coming out with is the Iranians have contacted me. No, they haven't. And of course, this was from a back channel by Pakistan. Pakistan actually back channeled the Iranians, and Trump gave them the 15-point plan. And guess what? Here we go. This is a new thing we're going to be doing. We're going to be not just taking what we are told up ahead and letting you go as a bit of a crystal ball. So have a little look at it.
Tell me.
And that a bit later on is exactly what happened. Now, for a bit of fun, we will be doing that once a day to show you something that everybody is saying is completely wrong. And of course, we'll be showing you that it's true. And we'll be predicting it in advance. So that's our little crystal ball bit of fun there for you. So if you've seen that on our website, by all means, go along and enjoy it. The Iranians have turned around and said, no, they've said it's complete nonsense. Here's our plan. And the 10-point police plan, of course, that the Iranians have given back to the Pakistanis is a complete joke. Nobody in their right mind in a million years is going to have anything to do with it whatsoever. Because, of course, the Iranians have made, shall we say, they've turned around and said, we want this, that, and the other, that nobody will ever agree to. Oh, there we go. That nobody will ever agree to in a million years. There's no chance of them ever doing it. So just giving you a quick heads up there. It is incumbent upon us now to show you this. Have a look at this.
Been impressed how the Israel lobby has failed during a genocide to be able to be as persuasive for a whole new generation of Americans, let alone Western Europeans, who don't believe Israel anymore. And in that context, I don't know what you think about the massive media mergers or proposed mergers over this year. CNN, a pawn in the blockbuster takeover battle. CNN, Paramount, Warner Brothers, all these configurations being discussed. I don't know whether to get a better handle over the propaganda system in your country.
I think it's really quite amazing what's happening here. The fact is that because of social media, Israel has suffered enormous damage in terms of world opinion and in terms of public opinion in the United States. It's really quite stunning how much damage Israel has done to its reputation, although it's not terribly surprising when you think about the impact of social media, especially organizations like TikTok. But anyway, the lobby has decided that what they're going to do is try and shut down social media from criticizing Israel. They're going to go to great lengths to take over various platforms and force platforms that they don't take over to vary their content to minimize the criticism of Israel. I don't think that can be done at this point in time. I think the cat is out of the bag, as we like to say. I think people now fully understand that Israel is an apartheid state and it has been executing a genocide. And you can't erase that from people's minds. They've seen it. They've seen all the evidence that they need to see to reach that conclusion. And I think it's going to be exceedingly difficult for the lobby to change people's opinions. And in fact, I think the more heavy-handed the lobby is, the more the lobby engages in smash-mouth politics, the more people are going to get angry with the lobby for basically violating basic freedom of speech principles here in the United States. I think at this point in time, the greatest threat to free speech in the United States comes from Israel's supporters.
There we go. That's John Mersheimer. Chris has said, and if you are watching, by the way, I'm just going to answer that from Chris, and we'll let Louis Bastos in 2 seconds. But just going to let you know that people, if you have enjoyed what you've seen here tonight, and of course, we hope that you have, then of course, do come and see us across at warrenthornton.com. And of course, for the time being, though, this is the end of your hour. We show videos over there that we can't show to anyone else because we'd be taken down off mainstream media, cancels us straight away. Can't even show it on X either. They get very upset about it. So here we go. Thank you for watching the show. Warren Thornton on Patriot. Come and see us.